Well, it's 3 o'clock. We'll get started, and we are recording, so this will also be available. I'm anxious to introduce Michael Conrad, one of our DAFT board members. He's our vice president, and he is also one of our experts in this awesome curriculum, Portraits of Democracy, that some of you, Stephanie, you were there, and who else was down at the DIA with us during that session? It was 2 day training from the folks at this nonprofit. And I'll let Michael talk more about that. And I will turn it over to you. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to be sharing my screen for the most part. So if you have a question or something, I won't be able to see the chat. So if you can just unmute and talk, or Kevin, if you can let me know. But
yeah, sure thing. Share screen's available, and I will interrupt at awkward moments to read chats to you.
Beautiful. Thanks. Yeah, this opportunity came to DAFT a couple of years ago, and really have to give credit to Annette Frank and Kathy Vander, who started working with the Film Foundation. The Film Foundation, if you haven't heard of it, I might as well start sharing now, because why not, right? There, so you should be able to see my Film Foundation screen, hopefully. The Film Foundation is an organization that was started by Martin Scorsese. I think we've heard of him. His board of directors of this organization is a pretty amazing who's who of some of the most amazing filmmakers around right now. They all get together, and their goal is really to preserve film, educate about film, keep film in the spotlight of just everyone's minds and in different unique ways. And they started up an education aspect of it. And the education aspect of it is what Kathy and Annette got into. And it was it's called Portraits of Democracy, or Portraits of America, Democracy on Film. They traveled to Philadelphia for a presentation of a couple of these educational units. And they found it to be quite fascinating that they worked with the people at the Story of Movies and the Film Foundation to bring it to Detroit. And I believe it was either 2 years ago or 3 years ago now, 2 years ago maybe, in October. And we spent 2 days at the DIA in one of their small theaters down in the basement of it. And they went through some of these units with us as you would teach them. And it was a pretty fascinating compilation of curriculum that is literally written out for you. Like everything I'm going to show you right now, you can have access to. I found when I was learning about this, I thought, oh, I could bring in this film and do this, or I could bring in this film and do this. And I realized I shouldn't, because it's all here and it flows really, really well. Now, this curriculum was originally created for social studies and history teachers. Now, we're all mainly production. We have a history teacher at our middle school, Brian Zapata, who also teaches production. So he came to that day. He got a lot out of it. But you can also find a way to use this in other aspects of film, including production. So over the early spring, we did some online Zooms where I ran through some of these units as I was teaching them. Stephanie was there for that. Jennifer, I'm not sure, did you make it to any of those sessions?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon, because it was fun to go through and model it. And then you guys were, my students, and I would kind of run through it as you would do to a student. And that's the way I learned about it, from the people at the Film Foundation. So I think that I won't have time to do that today, because I think those were 3-hour Zooms in the evening, and I ran through a couple of units. This is just to kind of give you an overview of it, tell you a little bit about it, and where you can access all of this. Now, the first thing you want to know right off the bat is it's storyofmovies.org. So if you go to just type in storyofmovies.org right now and bookmark it, it'll ask you if you want to log in. Create a login for yourself, because it's free. And then it also allows you to get access to all of this. They're not looking for funding or payment on this. They're looking to get film curriculum in the minds of high school kids and college kids. I'm sure, Brad, you can squeeze this into the middle school too, if you really want to try to do it, because I think it could really, really work well. But we did talk before about hopefully like reverse engineering this in a way to show it in a production aspect. Now, a couple things to think about, like when you're on this website, they've got a lot of places to go on the tabs. And the area that I spend the most time with is with curriculum. And you see there's a couple things on here. There's the whole section of units called Portraits of America, Democracy on Film. There's a unit on the day the Earth stood still. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And I know every high school is still reading To Kill a Mockingbird. So if you wanted to try to teach a film on another way that's already being read in ELA to try to align, I think that'd be a great idea too. But we're going to spend some time on this with the Democracy on Film. Now, most of this, I would say probably about 98% of this, 95% of this is available through this website. There are a couple of films you'll have to try to track down, and I'll show you a couple ways you can do that. But as you go through this, and I just want to kind of scroll through this, there's quite a few modules. Not all the modules are complete because they're continually updating this. They had a module just after I ran through this session through our PD over the summer. They released another module. So I believe there are 5 or 6 modules right now, and they're looking at expanding. So one of the ones that we went through at that session was the immigrant experience. And as you go through this website, it's extremely easy to navigate, but it is also easy to kind of get lost in where you are because there's so much here. So you've got your module, and then all of these down here are the different units within that module. So within each module, you've got 5 units, including your introduction. So when I click on introduction, it's got a little bit here. If I go to my teacher's guide and I click on the teacher's guide, it gives me an entire document, a PDF document of the script, essentially, that I would go through piece by piece, image by image, film clip by film clip, and I'll show you a little bit more of this in a minute. But all of this is, including all the discussion questions, what to ask, it's all written out for you. It does take some time. You might want to go through this and read it and get comfortable with it before you do it in front of students, so you sound a little more conversational about it. But the fact that just the introduction here is, 7 pages long and laid out for you is a pretty impressive thing to have at your fingertips. Also, the PowerPoint presentation is also here that you need. And when you click on it, it immediately gives you the option to download it. So you don't have to think about that. Just figure out where you want to put it. In addition to that, you've got supplemental film clips. And when I click on this, it takes me to Vimeo. And this Vimeo has the immigrant short film, or not short film, but full film by Charlie Chaplin, which is 24 minutes long. The entire film is there. And the beauty of it is it allows you to download it. So almost all of the Vimeo links on here just give you the option to download all of these clips. So if you want to run it all through the cloud and run it off of browsers, you can, or you can go through and download and organize it, and you've got access to it. So those 3 pieces right there are just for the introduction. If I go back to that rundown, I go to chapter 1, America, America, and I click on that, and it looks pretty similar. Here's the teacher's guide. Here's the PowerPoint presentation you need. Then you can go to the unit on The Godfather part 2. It's got supplemental clips, specific scenes pulled out from The Godfather that they want you to use, as well as the teacher's guide and the PowerPoint presentation. And it does that for every single one of these units that's here. Now, down here, it's got some assessments. If you want to go through and ask them more detailed questions and kind of, do some formative or summative assessments with them, you can. It's also got this thing called the film reader, which is a bunch of different articles that a couple times during your script, it'll say, all right, now read this article and here's some discussion points on it as well. So it's not just showing film, it's looking at paintings, discussing art, doing some readings, and also watching the film clips. And then down here at the bottom of the unit is the Portraits of America Module 1 DVD, which I don't know why they call it the DVD, but again, it's 2 hours of the film clips that you need for this unit. And if you're curious what's on there, it even gives you the film clip log so that you can see everything that's on here that you need. Now, that might seem a little overwhelming. It was when I first saw it. But the fact that it's all laid out is pretty interesting, because then you can go through module 2 and they've got everything again for module 2. This one is for the American laborer. Your introduction, you've got your film clips, the guide, the PowerPoint. Mate 1 is the film. This one's hard to find. So if you wanted to buy it, it's kind of expensive. But some of these films, generally the main films that are the ones for the unit are the ones you might have to try to track down. excuse me, either rent or I picked a lot of them up at my local library. The Royal Oak Public Library had almost all of them, and all I had to do was grab them and rip them, and then I've got the digital copy. Or I made a list of also, you can buy them through Amazon or other sites. But all of these units are here. At the River I Stand, the clips, the guide, the PowerPoint. Norma Ray, Sally Field, you've got the clips, the guide, and the PowerPoint. Sometimes all the clips you need for these films are in these supplemental film clips, and it'll tell you in the script if you need that or not. Civil rights, same concepts all the way through. Assessments, the reader for articles, you've got your DVD. I don't know why they call it the DVD, it's the download. The American Woman was one that they added late last year, early in the year, in about January or February. So that was a fun one to kind of learn about, because when I sat through the training in the PD at the DIA, there was only 3 modules. And this is great because they bring an alien, like it's such a strong character for Sigourney Weaver to talk about that in a lot of detail. The newest one that they released, I believe, in over the summer was Politicians and Demagogues. Now, those are the ones that they have right now. If you want to see what's coming, and you scroll up here, back up to the top of this page, you'll see right here, Curriculum Outline. If you click on Curriculum Outline, it gives me this document, which talks about immigrant experience, the laborer, civil rights, the American woman, politicians and demagogues. And then you look through 6, 7, and 8, which are being developed right now: the press, soldiers and patriots, and auteurs. So actually just the art of film. Once these are all done, you've got a year-long program here. You could hunt and peck, I think, the things that you would want, but I think I would probably use a semester to get through half of this if I was just doing this. So it's pretty interesting to see the scope of what they've done with this program. Now, the way it looks when you're teaching it, let me minimize this. Let me go back. I need to try and share my whole screen on this part. It's not letting me do my entire screen. That's a bugger. Anybody know on Zoom a way to share the entire screen with all windows open?
I'm going to make you a co-host. That might give you a little more power.
That's what I want, power.
Power.
Let's see. Kaufman said, are there quizzes for this or projects that directly connect to the film? There aren't projects because it's not necessarily a production-based curriculum. It's more of a theory and reading of film curriculum. But you could, they do talk a lot. They talk a lot about shot composition. They talk a lot about lighting, sound. So you could create some that could go in there for a production-based course. And the quizzes are generally going to be about what they're reading in film and the analysis that they're getting. Let's see if I got more share options now. I don't. All right, so I'll just go through. Jenny, that's a good question. You could probably do it wherever you wanted, but I think when you get into each module with each 5 units, I almost feel like you could grab the unit that you wanted to use. I mean, like I said, this is kind of built to be a whole class, but I'm not going to use it that way. I'm going to be introducing it in the next couple of weeks in my my diploma program film through IB. I'm going to be doing a little bit of that. And I'm going to kind of hunt and peck the things that I want to do. Some of these films are really long and, believe it or not, kind of dull, but you will find that the analysis that you get into, and I want to give you an example of this for just for the introduction aspect of it. This is your PowerPoint slide for the introduction section of The Immigrant, where it shows you this painting and you discuss the painting and you talk about what are the highlights of the painting and what are we supposed to be looking at based on color and lighting, which starts to get the kids to start to realize, oh, I can read film scenes this way. And then there's a quote with a photograph, and then another painting. and then a cartoon. So all of this is laid out where the discussion starts to happen even long before you get to an actual clip of film. And then we talk about this Charlie Chaplin film, The Immigrant, and there's all of these discussions, questions that you can talk about ahead of time, and then you can go into talking about that. Now, how does that work in terms of your script? Your guide over here on the left side gives you a great kind of introduction, almost speech that you can do, talks about everything that you're going to need. And then we can go to this first part, display PowerPoint slide 2, movies. And you talk a little bit about the historical aspect of that. And then you've got 3 questions here to ask. And while you leave that up on your screen, I mean, this is really built for virtual learning. It's like I never thought about it that way until we're stuck into it. It really is laid out perfectly for that. Once you go through these 3 questions, then you've got another PowerPoint slide, ubiquitous motion picture. Talk a little bit about that picture and that brief quote. Then go to another PowerPoint slide. And here are your questions all laid out for you. You can stray from this, great conversation always does. But it just shows you how well this can work for you. And then once you get through the slides, it says right here, read and discuss the working class leisure and the rise of commercial recreation. And in that reader document that's included with all of them is a whole collection of, there's 33 pages of this. Here is the article that you give the kids to read. Give them some time during maybe an asynchronous time to sit down and read this, and then bring them back to talk about the discussion questions that go along with it. Oh, then we're going to watch The Immigrant by Charlie Chaplin. So it just kind of really, the way they make this flow really helps out in terms of not keeping it stagnant and stale. It bounces all over the place. I mean, Stephanie, you sat through it when we did it. What were your thoughts on it?
So I was kind of typing lots of stuff in the chat. So like Mike said, this was really created for history teachers, but I feel like when I sat through it, I don't know, there's not enough time for me to cover my curriculum and all of these units. So I think you have to take bits and pieces of what will work with what you already do. Like the Norma Jean unit where they showed us the clip without the sound, and then the kids talked about like what sounds do you think should be there, and then we watched it. It was like, wow, I didn't even think of that. So I think you can take bits and pieces and figure out how to use it within what you already teach. Like for documentary filmmaking, the experience, like some of these units I think would work really nicely. I don't think any of you would be able to use the whole thing unless you're teaching like a film studies class, but there's lots of great resources. I can't remember, Mike, which of the units had like more of a film analysis. There was one in one of the units where it was like, we're looking at the way it's cut. We're looking like, I think that was one
the unit on women with Alien. The Alien unit
right.
talked a lot about like opening credits and why they're that way, and how it's cut, and sound, and no dialogue, and long takes. So yeah, it's almost the kind of thing that you need to sort of go through and see what would fit into the classes that you're currently teaching. Because you're right, this is an entire class on its own, which is not for us, but pieces and chunks of it can be.
And I think it would force the kids, like when I watched it, I thought, wow, even having the kids learn the historical background, like the movie posters and how they were depicted, or thinking about things just in a deeper way, I think it will make them appreciate watching films. And I think it will make them in turn a better filmmaker, honestly.
And even if you wanted to do something around, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, there's a great unit on MLK, and you can do something around that. Around like Day of Silence, there's a whole thing about Harvey Milk. There's so many aspects of social studies in this as well that you can, teach the kids a more, diverse concept of filmmaking and the messages that come across. So I think that's kind of a fun thing.
And I feel too, especially switching to remote, if you need to buy some time to figure out where you're going next, everything is there for you. So find a unit, plug it in, because they can do it without you if they had to. And then the second the unit's done, you can hop back in.
Yeah, go into the PowerPoint slides and pull the pieces out that you want. And you know what? The Film Foundation does not care. If you take this and chunk it out and make it your own, awesome. You're still using part of it. The whole goal was to get this into the hands of teachers to use. Now, the organization of it, like I said, you can go through the website and just keep everything on the website that you want and run it from there. Yeah, you can download almost all the clips. A couple of the Vimeo slides for some reason don't, or Vimeo video clips don't have it. So you got to get creative with some ripping. But some of the films you will have to try to find on your own. And it'll say in there, you know, at the beginning of the script, it'll say what you need. You will need to procure this film for this unit. One of them, I believe, is The Godfather 2. You know, you need to get that entire film because the kids end up watching the entire Godfather 2 film. They end up watching the entire film Alien. So what I did is, because I know the way the world works and sometimes websites go down and programs end, I wanted all this. So I went through, and it did take a little bit of time, but if you go through and just start plugging away and downloading it, I'll show you my structure that I created from it. I just downloaded, I went to the introduction, and when I clicked on introduction, I downloaded the PowerPoint, I downloaded the teacher guide, and through Vimeo, I downloaded the video was there. And it was all just click save, click save, click save. And then I went to the America, and I went through and I grabbed the PowerPoint slides and I grabbed the teacher's guide, which is the script. And it doesn't take a lot of space because these are just, you know, docs, but once you start to get into the video files, that's where it gets a little bit full. So I went through and I grabbed The Godfather, and I have the PowerPoint, I've got the PDF of the teacher guide. Okay, now I've got a video file that's of a bunch of the clips that I need. And I went through
that Godfather one. I'm sorry to interrupt. That Godfather clip, the opening clip, totally relates to COVID. Remember, he's being quarantined. So like some of it, you could totally, it's current.
And we realized that because we're all doing this at home because it was right during the first days of quarantine. We're like, oh my God, this is like 1974 here, predicting what we're doing. Oh my God, that's right. I forgot about that. That's funny. And then I went through and grabbed like the assessments, and all of this is just sitting there to download so that you have everything here that I have on my computer is on the website. Now, this is the supplementary film list that you may need. If you decide to really get deep and want to do this, I just went through and found the files on Amazon and said, okay, here are the films that you would want to have. You know, if your school district is generous and they've got money for you set aside, or for, you know, I consider this like textbooks. If I'm teaching a film class, these are my textbooks. It's going to cost a couple $100 to get all of these. Or go to your library, find them that way, or find some place online to rip them. So what I end up doing is for every one of these units, I spent some time over the summer finding them all. So I've got a folder in here with all the films that I need for each of the units now. So I've got through, and I labeled them according to unit. So it's, and this is the one area where I'm probably the most organized. The rest of my life is in shambles right now, but this looks really, really good. So if I go through, I see like, here's America, that's the film. Then I've got The Godfather Part 2. Then I've got El Norte, Namesake. And then I go into unit or module 2. I've got Matewan, Harlan County. Norman Ray, for some reason, was very difficult to find. But all of these films, if you're going to run through the entire thing, these are the films that you'll need because the clips don't, some of the clips are in the units, but they generally say, okay, now have the kids watch the rest of the film, or have the students watch the rest of the film, and then you can have it. And doing this, I can put it up on Google Drive and share it with the kids so they have access to, especially with distanced. So the kids don't have to go find anything if you have it all. Now, some of the, let me go back to the Film Foundation page for a second. So I have a ton of windows open, so I'm just navigating around. Does anybody see value in this? Is this something you think that you'd be able to find useful to you? I mean, DAFT doesn't. DAFT's not really pushing this for any other reason than we think it's a really great resource. Back into this. Sorry, I got bumped out. Yeah, maybe is a good word for it, because I think it's just so much here. It's like, great, thanks for giving me a sip from the fire hose is kind of the way I look at this kind of a thing. But you find a unit, you give it a shot, and who knows, maybe you go back later and find another unit and give it a shot, or even parts of it.
I think if you're doing anything to show like how music can make something just better, you know, or like nat sound versus, you know, using sound effects, start with the Norma Ray one. Just check that one out and play the clip and then read what it, because that's what caught me the first time I saw it. I thought, in fact, I remember leaving and going to school, and that's what I started my next day with. And the kids were like, you know, it just made sense to them too. So I've just used parts of what I liked where I thought it would fit.
Yeah. And I think for programs like ours that are, you know, mainly production based, I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. So if I go to teacher resources, they also put up here teaching strategies. And the teaching strategies, this is what they really look at in terms of when they built this, which was the cinema literacy, and how and what they can conceptualize is how this fits in to not just a production class, because they really want to align this with ELA, with history, with social studies, to make sure it's a viable resource to use in a school district, and not just, you know, oh, it's that TV class or video class over here. No, you can incorporate into everything. We're actually contemplating in our school adding this to our history department as a full class, to give kids other opportunities to take a film class that really isn't a film class. So there's a lot of these options. And again, you click on this, great, download it. It gives you the opportunity right away to download, because they want you to have this stuff. Let me see if I can find that scene from Norma Ray really quick, Stephanie, because you bring up a really good point.
And we also analyzed character without seeing the movie. Like, I don't know if you remember, but in the lesson plan, it says, like, tell me about what you think you know about this character based on what the director shot. What do you think this person's life story is? What type of demographic do you think they come from? Are they like, it just really made, I think it will make the students think about their composition and like their filming experience and how they convey a story.
All right, so this is part of it. This is what Stephanie was talking about. They say, okay, just go ahead and play this. Now, kids have probably never seen Norma Ray. I mean, there's a lot of adults that haven't seen Norma Ray, but just think about the scene. And then afterwards, they're saying, now, what do you think it sounded like? What do you think the audio was there? What were you hearing? What did your kids say, Stephanie, when you ran this in class?
They said they expected it to be really loud, that it would be hard to hear if anyone was talking, just that it would sound like machinery, and like they would feel uncomfortable, you know, like not somewhere they would want to be. Very industrial.
Does anybody remember what the sound actually is here during this scene? For those that have seen it? I forget the name of the song, but it's just like this sweet, beautiful song, like completely clashing with the visuals. And again, this is something awesome you could do with virtual. Yeah, they even talk about like the things in the air, the things that you see flying around. Like, what does that mean? How does that make you feel without hearing any sounds at all? So it's a really, and you get into like diegetic versus non-diegetic sound, and you can just have so much fun with this. Yeah, I think they would appreciate their core classes more if this were used in them. Yeah, yeah. Kaufman, what did you find? What was it? The 134-page guide for young filmmakers just sitting there for you, right? Yeah, and it's just, you can spend a lot of time on this website looking for things that you might want to use. Like I said, I'm about to incorporate this program into my class for the first time coming up this quarter. So I'll see how it goes. But I don't have to think about it. It's all there. I just have to read it ahead of time.
And Mike, it's so nice to be able to have online text that I can say, read this chapter.
Yes.
Because, you know, it's there and it's
Yeah.
easy for all of them to access. And, you know, some of our text is so dense, and to give them 14 pages to read and then have accompanying video, it's huge.
Yeah, I've got a PDF that I downloaded years ago, the guide to a DSLR camera. And, you know, it's 52 pages. It's like, yeah, go read that. No. Well, hey, how about read, you know, read about ISO and then let's talk tomorrow, you know, just little pieces and not hauling the book around. I could just cut that piece out if I wanted to and send it to them. I'm just going through the chat to see what I missed. It will take you quite a bit of space if you do decide to go in and download a lot of it. So a good idea is get yourself an external drive. I actually did that, but then through our district, we're a Google school, so we have unlimited space on our Google Drive. So I've got it all sitting in my Google Drive so that I can share it with whoever may need it or want it. But I really don't know if any of you have gone into it. If you go into the site, make yourself a login and try to find some information. Mike, where'd you find that guide for filmmaking? Was that under teacher resources?
Just threw it in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's not a bad resource, huh? Yeah, this is good. It even brings up aspects of Titanic, The Truman Show. Yeah, I mean, that alone, that document right there could really help out and change the way you're doing some things right now virtually. If you just print it instead of, you know, print off 3 or 4 pages as a PDF and send it to them in little chunks, almost as mini worksheets to work on. Some great stuff in there about script writing.
He knows how to make a point.
Most intelligent comment I had in class all day today.
Me?
Leslie, oh yeah.
That was awesome. So anybody else perusing through the site, finding anything that's interesting?
I mean, just the fact that they have on here uh, national standards for like teaching film. I mean, I teach both social studies and film, so there are ways that I could use this program in my social studies classes. But like, I have been making up a curriculum for my film classes for a while, and it is, you know, an amorphous blob that I'm trying to give a real shape to. And the fact that they have like a core standards to base off of can help shape that blob a lot better.
Yeah. It'll give you a little ammunition behind you if admin comes to you and says, hey, what are you doing? Or how does this fit? Oh, right here. And for your any paperwork you've got to do for observations or your evaluation, you've got all the information right there and how to link it.
I had not thought of observations. Yes, that'll make it much better.
Right? Oh, Leslie, I think all we heard was a small child. Anybody else find anything interesting through the site? Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
All right. I think, yeah, you can, there you go, Leslie, try now.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had to switch to my phone because I had to pick up my daughter who evidently you could hear it, but not me. I was just saying that something I really liked about that PDF is this came up earlier, but if we can put it into Kami, that PDF is editable. So you could assign like a single page of it, or you and a student could fill it out digitally back and forth.
Right.
So I think that's another good way to break it up as well.
Yeah, it just comes a great collaborative workbook, really.
I was thinking, Mike, with our contact, and we've had kind of tentative offers in the past from the actress who played Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, but now with Zoom, it might be super easy to get her on a call with a bunch of teachers to kind of walk through that unit.
Yeah, the unit of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, and bring her on as a speaker.
That would be outstanding.
I still saved it. It was 3 years ago, and I've got her voicemail on my phone. Do you know her brother was the director of War Games?
Oh my gosh, I just watched War Games like 3 days ago with my son.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's very cool, but she's really all about teachers and English units, and
So this is the To Kill a Mockingbird. Are you guys seeing the To Kill a Mockingbird or no?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Again, it's got all the information. What is a movie? Narrative structure. It talks a little bit about heritage. Then we can get into filmmaking process, all geared around this film. Like this is another one where there's multiple aspects of this unit that you can play with. That's has production into it, but also has social studies and ELA involved. And then down here at the far right side, you've got a film lesson library that if you're looking for something, I think we mentioned documentaries earlier. Someone mentioned documentaries, that when you go through some of these, there's one over here, interpreting a documentary film. Film piracy, you can talk about that with copyright should you want to. If you want to do silent film, Harold Lloyd, his films are hysterical. But there's just so many opportunities in this site outside of the Portraits of America. I'm sure you can find something in here that's a strong resource for you.
I always think it's a good thing, my favorite is when students just buck immediately at a black and white movie.
Yep.
And then they realize, oh, this is a really good movie in spite of it being black and white. But my silver bullet was always Some Like It Hot. I don't think I've ever shown that to a student who didn't love it. And it's just such a, I'm a big Billy Wilder fan anyway, but because I think what he can do with comedy and drama and a mix of both, like in The Apartment and things like that, is really amazing. But that was always one of my favorite films to use in class.
I totally agree, because it's black and white and they don't think it's going to be very good, and all of a sudden at the end, the ending is epic.
Yeah.
And they fall. I just watch them at the end, the last line of the film. It's great.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. That was a Trivial Pursuit question. It's the last line in Some Like It Hot, and it's like, he runs down all the lines about why your mother, I can't get married to you in your mother's dress. Why not? Your mother and I, we are not built the same way, and all these double entendres. And he says, we can get it altered. And he goes, oh, no, you don't, and there's all this, it's just an amazing script. And at the very end of it, the whole point is, Tony Curtis, who's this extreme chauvinist pig, by becoming a woman and then becoming a guy who's pretending to be a womanizer, and his perception of how women are treated and should be treated. It's such a great feminist film. And then for him to say, I'm a man. And then the line is, well, nobody's perfect, and it's a great, great film. And I don't think I've ever had the class not applaud when at the end of that film, when that movie ends, and it's rare you get applause, let alone for an old film.
Spielberg said that about his kids. He makes his kids watch black and white films and they don't want to, but then about 10, 15 minutes in, they don't care.
Right.
Because it still locks you in.
What's been Mike, what's your favorite unit to teach? You may have said this already. I may have been out, but
Out of here?
yeah.
Well, I said I'm introducing it for the first time in a class in a couple of weeks, but the one that I'm probably excited to do the most is the American Woman aspect of it, especially Alien. We went over Alien a little bit over the summer in those courses, but that one I'm really excited to do. I find that one to be a film that kids can connect to because it's sci-fi and horror at the same time, so they'll love it. But then also to talk about the strong female character in it, I really like that for my classes. So that's the one that I'm really excited to do. The unit that I really would like to get into when they complete it, that I will probably do start to finish, will be the press. Because they talk about all the goods, all the President's Men, Inconvenient Truth, Good Night and Good Luck. So there are so many great aspects of press in that, especially in the realm of living in fake news right now. I think that would be a really interesting way and to bring a lot of discussion and also media literacy of where they're getting their information. So once that one is released, I'm going to lock that one in and use that one.
Yeah, and even recently, The Post as well as Spotlight, they're both excellent. They say just watch those two movies and you actually feel like switching your major to journalism.
Yeah, Spotlight, I think, is on Netflix right now. There's a lot of kids watching it by accident and really loving it because they'll watch anything, whatever's next. Like, oh, just hit play and boom.
I might be able to get a guest speaker for that movie.
Really? Oh, that'd be amazing.
My cousin's in that. He plays the journalist with a mustache who's in the group with Mike.
Oh yeah, that narrows it down.
Brian Darcy James. He's the guy who warns his kids, don't go to this house, and he puts it on the refrigerator, the message and all that. But yeah. Anybody else got favorite films you've shared with your classes?
Shadow of a Doubt.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Is amazing too. Another black and white, but they love it. That's another one I can think of.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful ones I use in my documentary unit is The Hunting Ground, which is a documentary from a couple of years ago. And it's about sexual assault on college campuses. And it's very difficult to watch, but it's something that at the end of the class, it's silent. Nobody has a word to say. And then we come in the next day and start to unpack it and really get to it. And it's really, really powerful.
And then Jameis Winston goes and wins the Heisman Trophy and becomes the #1 draft pick after that.
Yep.
But Doug Blush, who worked on that film and was one of the producers and editors for it, he's actually going to be one of our speakers next week for the Student Symposium. And he and Josh Baer, Josh is a West Bloomfield grad, but just in a weird DAFT world, they both are DAFT alum. Josh from he's from like 2005, I think, from West Bloomfield. But Doug Blush went to Rochester Adams and attended Focal Point in 1984. And Doug ended up hiring Josh out in LA. Then they both found out they were both DAFT alum. So Josh is going to join on the call too next week about documentary work. And
that was actually
Doug's been in the Oscars now 3 straight years. You know, his Icarus was a movie that he produced. He was one of the producers for that won best. And then the Period, End of Sentence, short documentary. And then
20 Feet from Stardom.
20 Feet from Stardom, yeah.
Yeah, when The Hunting Ground came out, he was in town doing a screening at Imagine in Royal Oak, and it happened to be the same week as Focal Point. So he invited all the students from Focal Point that year. We took Thursday and went and saw that film. And then Friday, he came to Focal Point and critiqued the kids' work. That was a phenomenal opportunity. So that was really cool for the kids to actually see his work and then have some critique from him.
It's interesting how documentaries now have become so popular because of the streaming channels, I think, mostly.
True crime shows. Kids love those. And they're documentaries, really.
Did you guys see Ken Burns' country music series? I am not a country music fan, or at least I wasn't until I saw that series, and it's fascinating. It was so good. It was like, it just came out like a year ago. And the Roosevelts one is just one of my favorites.
60 Minutes recently did a little segment on him, which was really, really interesting. We DVR it, so I don't know when it was on, but it would have been like in the last couple weeks. Maybe it was last week, but I think I'm going to try to find the clip so that I can show my students, because I think it was really beneficial.
Ann Arbor guy. I didn't even know that for a while, that he's from Ann Arbor. Mike, you wrote The Making of 1917, huh?
Yeah, visually it's just epic. I'm not real keen on the plot. I think the plot is lacking, but
it's so thin.
Artistically, how it was filmed, I think it's just amazing. And the kids agree. The kids are just in awe of everything it took, from the modeling and practicing where the light would fall to the actual filming, just all the planning that went into that film. It's just amazing.
So odd that came up in class. It's funny you put that in there, because it came up in one of my classes just earlier this week, and someone equated it to a Rube Goldberg machine. The way the way the camera's got to move around, it's kind of like, the ball rolling through. And I said, it's exactly what it's like. And then we went down the OK Go music video rabbit hole and started watching all of those. So, but that's a great film. I love it. You're right. I think the plot's a little thin, but the production task was incredible.
Yeah, it was.
Be Kind, Rewind. Yeah.
I have
I love that movie.
I have a standing extra credit assignment in my video classes. I made a list of 255 movies you need to watch before you die. And if you ever need extra credit, you watch one of the movies and you write a short critique of it. And I had a parent-teacher conference, and the mom was worried about her kid's grade. And I was like, well, he should do one of the movies on the list and he can get extra credit. So they sat down as a family to watch one of the movies on my list, and they went with Fritz Lang's M.
Okay. Nice
which
family.
is, one of the better movies made about a child murderer. Yeah. But still, it's not really family fare. But I guess they all enjoyed it.
Glad you said that. I thought you were going to say Fritz the cat for a second.
Yeah, I've seen your list, Adam. I really disagree with Porky's 3, though. I don't know if I should have made that.
You're more of a Porky's 2 kind of guy. I get it.
Yeah. Did you guys ever see SCTV, the series? There's always that bit where he says, if you ever get stuck and nobody's going to laugh, all you got to do is say Billy Barty and somebody in the room's going to laugh. And for me, that's my Billy Barty is Porky's 3. It's like,
I occasionally teach a public study class at my high school, and one of the movies I showed that's always a big hit is Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. And for many of these kids, it's the first black and white movie they've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then I showed it to my daughter when she turned 8, and she walked around and I overheard her telling her friends it's her favorite movie. And it just made me so happy.
Another one I do love to show them is Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
Spike. And that one really, that resonates really loudly now when they watch the scene at the end with Radio Raheem and you look at all of the videos that go viral, and it's just, they're blown away that movie was made in 1989 and it looks like it could have been made last year.
Yep.
So the discussion that follows that is, it's like walking on eggshells the whole time, but boy, the kids have some very, very powerful insight after watching that film. I really love hearing what they have to say.
My favorite, especially, I think it's a great film just as an exercise in point of view, because, he'll take all these different people in that neighborhood and, you just drop in on their conversations, like the 3 guys staring at the Korean grocery store across the street and their whole point of view. And then one of them turns on the other one and said, what stopped you from making that into a store? That kind of thing. And, he's really, I always think Spike Lee's really good at pointing the mirror, looking in the mirror too, in the middle of his films as well. And, certainly with Black Klansman, which was so powerful. Well, I will not, I'm going to keep things open until 4:00, but if you guys slide out or you want to just keep your screen on, you won't offend me. But I'm not sure again how tough Oakland Schools looks at the exact minutes and everything like that. But Mike, thanks so much for sharing the curriculum and all the work you put into it. And Stephanie, your side of things, you've attended a lot of these workshops. So you could be our next presenter, Stephanie. But that would be cool. I think it'd be kind of an interesting workshop to continue this dialogue on these units as they come out. Maybe each time a new unit comes out, we can have a Zoom chat about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be happy to do, I just sent that to you by Kevin, just to you. I just sent a message. You're welcome to everybody. I sent it just to Kevin.
On behalf of everyone, they're grateful for you.
Right. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to go through a unit as if it's laid out, especially like you said, when a new one comes out. That'd be a lot of fun. It's kind of fun to unpack it.
Good. Well, I'm getting a lot of good feedback. People said they got a lot of good ideas today. That's great. Hopefully it moved along. Interesting format. I think the 15 minutes in between helps, and the lunch break and everything. So I'm going to be sending out the links to everybody probably in the next day or so. I'll just put them on a unlisted YouTube. Each one is an unlisted YouTube link because I don't have a big enough Zoom account to keep them sitting there forever. But I'll just download them and put them up after that. Okay.
Yeah, keep me in that loop because I wasn't here today for all of it, but I would love to see, especially the one on OBS.
Yeah, I'll send out just everybody who attended. I'll send out all the links and everything, and then look forward to seeing you guys. If you don't mind, if you know you're bringing a bunch of students next week, even virtually, if you could just take a minute and hit the RSVP page on the DAFT website. That would be great if this is where it's located. If you aren't sure, I'll just bring it up real fast on the DAFT screen. But if you just go to the events and the symposia, there is right down below the Teacher Symposium, and just down below is the agenda for next week.
Perfect.
And then just a quick, how many people that you're sending, number of students, and this won't be in person. I'll also I'll add one that says online. So that would help me out. I'm not exactly sure. Does anyone know how big Zoom can handle? Is it in case we hit 200 or something, 200 students?
I had a parent night that had at least 65 people on it. And it was okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably disable everybody's video just to save bandwidth. The students, or at least, keep them locked off unless they request to have their cameras on. But we are going to leave, especially during the studio time, we're going to leave time for Q&A. So what we're going to do is take like Pat students who are going to be there, we're going to give them different jobs, and the different department heads are going to walk through their job and all that. But we're building in at least 15, 20 minutes for Q&A from the Zoom audience as well as the people in there. So, look over the agenda, and if you've got any special questions you want me to relay to the presenters ahead of time, I'll be happy to do that.